What's up, guys? Welcome back. I'm Mike.
And I'm Brit.
And today we'll be going over 3 ways to invest your first $100 in the stock market.
So a couple years ago, Mike and I were brand new to investing and we had no idea where to begin. We didn't know much about how it worked, and we were saving for a house during that time and didn't have much money to put into investing at all.
But we did know that growing wealth through investing in the stock market was one way that many people have become financially independent over time. And since we also wanted to become financially independent, we decided to take a small amount of our money, invest in the stock market just to start getting experience with it.
So if you're like how we were 2 years ago, maybe you want to start investing but don't have much money, or you're a beginner investor and just want to get your feet wet by investing a small amount of money first, then this video is for you.
So let's address one question and or hesitation you may have right off the bat here. You may say, well, Mike, if all I have is $100, isn't that not enough money to get started? Like, I can't even buy one share of Apple with $100 because one share of Apple costs like $150 right now. And that's a valid question to have. So how can you invest in stocks or index funds that cost more than $100 if all you have is $100? Well, you can do this with what's called fractional shares. Different brokerages may call these different things. For example, Charles Schwab calls these slices, stock slices. But the point is...
It reminds me of pizza, like a pizza slice.
The point is, fractional shares allow you to buy fractions of a share of a stock. So if you wanted to invest into Google with a share price of $2,800, but all you had is $100 to invest, well, you could spend all that $100 on Google and now own 1/28th of a share of Google. Or you could spend as little as $1 and own 1/2800th of a share of Google. The point being that $100 is more than enough to start investing and growing your wealth, and it can actually do a lot more than you think.
And just like anything else, whether you're trying to pay off debt, save money, start budgeting, things become less daunting and more attainable the more you start to do them. And once you start, it becomes easier to continue and you find yourself doing more and more. And before you know it, you're starting to accomplish your goals.
So with that being said, here are 3 beginner methods to invest your first $100 in the stock market.
The first method is index fund investing. And if you're unfamiliar with index funds, they're like a basket full of different stocks. And when you invest into an index fund or ETF equivalent, you are investing into everything it holds at the ratios it holds them in. And this is a great way of diversifying your portfolio because it already has diversification built right into it.
So if you're unfamiliar with index funds or ETFs, let's quickly just go over a couple examples here. So like Brittany said, index funds are just kind of like a basket of stocks. ETFs are exchange-traded funds, which are pretty much the exact same things as index funds, but these are openly bought and sold on the stock market. These are actually what Brittany and I invest into when Brittany and I say like we're investing in index funds, we're really investing into ETF equivalents. But they're pretty much the same thing. So one of the most popular ETFs or index funds is the S&P 500. So what we have on the screen here is VOO. This is the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. So if we go to the 10-year chart here, it's up 281.36% over the last 10 years. But let's go to the holdings, because that's what we're really talking about. Because when you invest in an index fund or ETF, you're really investing into a bunch of other things. So if we look at the top 10 holdings for VOO, the first one is Apple at 5.92%. That means when you buy one share of VOO, 5.92% of that is Apple. And then 5.62% of VOO is Microsoft. And then 4.06% is Amazon, so on and so forth. So since this is an S&P 500 ETF, we're going to have about 500 companies within it, as you see down here, 508. But these are just the top 10. Now let's look at VTI. Now this is a little bit different. This is not an S&P 500 ETF. This is Vanguard's total stock market ETF. So this represents the entire stock market. So if we go to its 10-year yield over here, it's about the same as VOO, a little bit different. That's because it has different holdings in different ratios than VOO did. So for this one, we see that Apple still makes up, or Apple still holds the number 1 position, 4.9%, and then Microsoft at 4.6%, and then Amazon at 3.33%. But if you notice, these percentages or these weights are a little bit different. Also, if you notice down here, VTI has 3,910 holdings as opposed to 508 like VOO did. So that's why there's a little bit of a discrepancy in their performance over the last 10 years. The top 10 holdings are pretty much the same.
So some of the pros to index fund investing are, one, it's less risky than investing in individual stocks. There's built-in diversification, like we mentioned before, and you have other people managing the fund who have had a lot of training and years of experience, so they're very knowledgeable.
Yeah. Now these are called fund managers, not FUN managers, not that type of fund, but fund, FUND managers. So because there's these fund managers overseeing the fund, there's virtually no work on your part if all you're doing is investing in a couple of ETFs or index funds, because these fund managers are overseeing the buying and selling and making sure things are weighted appropriately. There's also a passive income aspect associated with index fund investing because most index funds, not all, but most, have what's called a dividend, meaning you basically get a paycheck every few months just for owning these index funds. Also, you're pretty much guaranteed to match the return of whatever the index fund you're investing in is tracking. It's kind of a confusing sentence, but for example, if you're investing in VOO, which is the ETF that tracks the S&P 500, investing in that pretty much guarantees that you get the same return as if you were investing in the S&P 500 overall.
And on the other hand, some cons of index fund investing, since there is a fund manager, like Mike talked about before, there is what's called an expense ratio, which means you do pay a small fee to have the fund managed.
Yeah, so this basically just goes toward paying the salaries of the fund managers. Usually these are pretty low and in our opinion are more than worth it because, I mean, for VOO and VTI, I think their expense ratios are like 0.03%. I think Fidelity has some index funds and ETFs that have a 0% ratio. If you get into some like specialized ETFs or index funds, those can get a little bit higher, but for the most part, ETFs has a pretty low expense ratio, especially if you're going with Vanguard or Fidelity. But it's something to consider. Another con is since index funds are less risky than individual stock investing, you're going to miss out on potential rewards that come with individual stock investing. For example, if you didn't invest in Tesla before Tesla got introduced to the S&P 500 because it wasn't in an ETF yet, you would have missed out on the thousands of percentages of gains Tesla had on that track up to becoming one of the top S&P 500 companies.
Which leads us to the next method of investing, which is individual stocks. So if index fund investing isn't for you, you could use that $100 to invest in individual companies.
So with index fund investing, that offers built-in diversification. With investing into individual companies, this offers a much more concentrated and focused approach. This type of investing can be a little bit more risky and it's also a lot more time consuming. But if you invest your money into the right stocks, you could see some serious rewards that you would not be able to see with typical index fund investing. At least for us, our best performing assets that we have in our portfolio, at least right now, this could change, but so far it's been individual companies. Index funds, they're kind of like, more consistent, more solid, slow growth over time, but individual companies, man, if you pick the right ones, you can make a lot of money.
So the pros of investing into individual companies are you have a lot more potential for higher gains. And you're also your own fund manager.
So if you're like a control freak or really nitpicky about where your money goes, this method may be better for you. Resulting from all this, and this is another pro, is that by doing this, by doing all the research, by spending so much time studying charts and financial sheets and so forth and so on, you really get to know in-depth knowledge about the particular markets and the companies you're investing in.
So on the flip side, some cons are this takes a lot more of your time and effort, especially if you want to be a responsible investor and not gamble your money away.
Since you are your own fund manager, you have to do all the work. You are responsible for researching companies that you want to invest in. You're responsible for researching the financial reports. You're going over their 10Ks and 10Qs and watching CEO interviews on YouTube or whatever else. That takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, you learn a lot. You get a pretty good education doing that, but it takes a lot of time and work. Another con of individual companies are, for the most part, more volatile than index fund investing. So index funds, it's not uncommon for them to fluctuate like maybe 0.5%, 1%, maybe 2% in a day. Individual companies can fluctuate between like 5 and 10, maybe 20% or more.
20 or 30% depending on what's going on.
Yeah, in a day. And that can really like screw with your mind if you're brand new to this.
And the third and final investing method you can do with your $100 is you can invest in both.
Index funds and individual companies. And with this method, you get the benefits of both. With index funds, you can diversify your portfolio by investing indirectly in many, many different companies. And then by investing into individual companies on top of that, you also can get like extra focus and direct exposure into those companies you may have high hopes for.
Yep.
This is actually what Brittany and I do in our portfolio. We started off investing in index funds because we were brand new, we didn't really know what to do. And then, gradually over time, with the more we learned, the more comfortable we got with looking over financial reports and numbers and things like that, the more we started dabbling into individual companies. We're not going to really go over our entire portfolio in this video. We did make another video about that recently. We'll link it up here if you're interested. That really goes in depth about everything Brittany and I are invested in. But just briefly, we are invested in 3 index funds. That's VTI, like we mentioned before, the total stock market index. We're invested in VUG, which is a growth index, and VGT, which is an information technology specific ETF. And then, of course, companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and a few others. Also, guys, we just hit 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. Thank you so much. If you have subscribed and watched our videos, we had 500 subs like a year and 3 or 4 months ago.
Yep.
and now we have 10,000. So that's insane. So thank you guys a lot.
Thank you
We
guys
really
so
appreciate
much.
it. So that being said, guys, those are Brittany's and my 3 beginner methods to start investing your first $100 in the stock market. We hope this video was helpful, educational, enjoyable, offered maybe some guidance or maybe some information about where to start looking into things if you want to start investing yourself. If this video was helpful, please give us a huge thumbs up. It helps out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm.
And also subscribe for more, and you can follow us on Instagram at It's Mike and Brit. We post there every now and then.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. And with that being said, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Bye.